Okay, so we are live now, and I have Sharon Miller on here as promised, aka the Google Gal, to talk a little more in depth about Google My Business, specifically for a podcast. So, Sharon, I'm going to go ahead and let you, again, for the people that maybe are just catching this and they hadn't seen it before, give them just kind of an overview of what Google My Business is.
So, Google My Business is a panel that you land on in Google Search. So whether you're in Google Maps and you're driving somewhere, or you're in Google Search and you're looking for something, whether it's a online business or a business with a physical location, that is the first place that Google draws you to in search. So therefore, that's why it is so important.
Well, and I know a lot of people probably don't even realize that they are interacting with Google My Business most of the time, every single day on some level.
Yeah.
And they don't even realize that's what it is, because I know, most of us will Google something to try to look like tacos near me, or that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm always like tacos near me or coffee near me or whatever it may be. But, they're interacting with that, businesses Google My Business page, whether it be, that they are looking at reviews, or, because that's what I do. I get on there and I'll look at the reviews, be like, okay, well, who's got the best tacos, or who's got the best coffee, or,
who's open now.
Exactly. Which is why it is so uber important to make sure and keep it updated. And I know, trust me, as a business owner, that's one more thing to do, right? So I know that we all kind of fall in that rut of I should have, would have, could have, I need to do that. And a lot of times we don't take that minute to go ahead and update those things. And maybe for some people listening, they've never even paid attention that they even have a Google My Business page.
Or realize that they even can have one. I mean, sometimes you're a virtual business, whether that's coaching or whatever that may be, and you don't even think about the fact of the impact of Google and realizing, every aspect of what Google has to know, or that you have to guide them and get them to see you. So, I mean, even like setting up your Google podcasting room and making sure you build it out all the way, and that you're tagging your podcast certain ways, and you're telling Google what it needs to know. It's not listening to your podcast. It only knows what you feed into Google about you and about your business. It doesn't look at social media. Google does not look at anything other than Google stuff or your website. And even when it comes to your website, if you don't put all the coding in the back of your website that Google wants there, it's not really going to look at your website a whole lot. So, it's really critically important that you take on the embracing of Google. Some people are like, they're such a monopoly, I'm not going to embrace Google. Well, okay, then suffer the consequences. I mean, unfortunately, because that is really how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had a couple of conversations with people recently just on that same subject. And I mean, that's the thing. You don't have to align with anything on a political level, but here is the thing that, people need to realize is that, Google is the main way that people search for anything. I mean, we even use it as, it's become a term. I'm going to go Google it.
Yeah.
I'm Google it, So it is very much an understatement to say that most people use it, because what is it, 94% or something
94.7 in the US, 92.1 in the world.
Okay, so there you go. So that many people, are utilizing Google to search. So, if you own a business, you have to make sure that you tell Google who you are, what you want them to know, because that's how your customers are finding your business. So personally, you can do whatever you want to do as far as, your alignment with any company. But as a business goes, it doesn't make much sense to not tell Google who you are. And here's the fun fact, and I've heard you say it, if you don't tell Google who you are, they're going to make it up. So you're on Google.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to be on Google, you're on Google, but it may be in a way that you're not wanting to represent your company. So that makes it even more important to be able
all the way down to making sure you put a title on every photo that goes up anywhere that Google could potentially scan to try to gain knowledge of your business.
So I want to go ahead and I don't know if you're wanting to try to kind of step-by-step tell people. I know you've got a class that's coming up, and you can put it in the comments.
Yeah, I have 2 classes coming up, one on the 14th. So I teach a class that teaches people how to very in-depthly build out the Google My Business page to the point that they've touched every area Google wants touched, and we talk through exactly how each section of the Google My Business page needs to be built out. We even go so far as to stop the class at one point and talk all about Google SEO and give you examples and teach you how to look online to learn about how Google and other people are seeing or searching for your business or what you want to be seen how to do, that you do.
Absolutely.
And that's a really big thing. So, I mean, like we're working with a client right now that, he has some podcasts, he has some YouTube videos, he's got his message is just kind of all over. And I was like, we've got to take a few steps back. Like, we can't help you with your Google marketing. We can't help you with really, building your website or anything until we understand who your target market is.
Absolutely.
And then, from there, when you give me your target market, what are all these people? So now we have his avatars built out, demographics, age, race, what they might do as a profession, kind of income they make. Now we narrowed it down and said, okay, of those, what is the common factor every one of these will be doing through what you do with your business, and what is the things that are specific to those pieces. And now we're to the point that we started to understand that, and we've got a 30-second commercial created for each avatar. And now we're starting to build out actual content for his website that's actually going to tell Google more about the types of people that we need to get to him, and we'll do the same thing on his Google My Business page. We'll do the same thing. We build out all the Google coding on the backside of his website. Now we know who he's going after and what he helps people achieve. And then, one of the things I noticed with him, and this is with a lot of people, sometimes you start talking 5 steps ahead of where everybody else's thought is because they just got to learn about your business.
Yeah.
And so one thing I actually told him, and I think this is really a good thing to do, and I gave him a couple examples to look up, is I think everybody needs to have that. I know Maria does, this little like song or intro into your podcast that just introduce you on like a quick 10 seconds or 20 seconds about who you are, just so that they have a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all Google's trying to do. They may see information out there about you, and they may learn pieces of it here and there because maybe your podcast is on Google, but maybe you don't fully have the backside of it built out, or you're not really tagging it the way it needs to, or you've got a website, but you have no Google coding on the back of the website. And, that's something that you can, literally drop. If somebody wants to drop their website in chat, I'll screen share and go online and see if you have Google coding on the back of your website. So, just there's so many things that Google looks at and considers, but so many times the information that they see out there is that same way. It's 5 steps ahead of where Google's machine needs to be starting. Mm-hmm. So when we build out the Google My Business page, we literally walk you through when you build out your services of what you provide to clients or what you're providing to that listener. We tell you to kind of like start out at point A and work your way down. You get 25 categories or 25 like subcategories and about 2.5 sentences per subcategory. So, we teach you like how to write that out, how to think about it. And that's where we really go into the Google SEO, because so often, people say, well, I do this. Well, the problem is when you put that in Google and you say, my service is a life coach.
Yeah.
So is everybody else's.
Yeah.
I mean, there are thousands of life coaches out there. So now we get to the point that we start searching in Google and look at the things that people are searching around life coach. And now we may say, life coach focusing on women with, that's children have just started school, that all their kids are now in school, or maybe women who are now an empty nester and their life has changed enormously. So now, we've gone out to Google, we've done these searches, and we've figured out, in SEO that if that's the group you're targeting, this is how people are searching to find that. And so we teach you that through this class. So right now we're running a cyber special in our class, and it is $24, I think, right now. And so, which is a steal, because when we do these in person, they're $279.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a 3-hour class with about a half an hour Q&A after. And so, it will be one of the most beneficial things that you'll ever take the time to do. Now, here's the thing I'm going to tell you. Google My Business is based for local search, but for you guys, most of you are not going to probably have an address to it. So you're going to start out by building maybe like a 50-mile radius of listeners for you that are going to bring them back. What happens is, as more and more people search your business, so we're located just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, but we have sales reps in Nashville, Tennessee, 5 hours away. We don't have a location in Nashville, Tennessee, but our location in Covington, Kentucky searches really heavily in Nashville, Tennessee, because I have so many people down there who are looking us up and seeing what we really do and how real we are and looking at our reviews and all that type of stuff, that I've got a really heavy following in Nashville, Tennessee. Same thing kind of around the Louisville area, up in Dayton, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, because of the fact that, people are still searching my name and they're finding that Google My Business page. When I land on that page, just like when you land on the page, it should tell me, what are your service market? Well, your service market is going to basically be your counties that are near you. But then it's going to talk to me about what are your services. So now I begin to learn more about you. I've never had to click off this page. I see great photos out there. The photos are tagged with the type of name. You're naming your photo before you put it up, and you're naming it something that you want Google to resonate with, dash your business name at the very end. So, they'll allow you, I think, 80 characters, something like that. So absorb them, because when you put that photo up, Google scans anything it can see on the backside of that photo, and it's seeing what you're telling it about that. I'm a life coach that works with women that are entering the stage of empty nesterhood, or whatever. Maybe you're a mompreneur, you or a fempreneur, whoever it is that you work with,
And specifically for podcasts, it works the same way.
Yes. Yeah. And so you have to have great photos up there. I mean, no matter what they are. And we even teach you a little bit about the do's and don'ts with photos that can get your page suspended, because there are definitely rules and regulations that Google needs you to follow. And when the class is over, you get a copy of the entire video, and you get a PDF version of it that has all the specifics of like what size your photos need to be, what it can do, what it's not allowed to do. We even go so far as to go into Canva. You can use any photo software you want. But when we get in there, we even go into Canva and we teach you how to create, different things with photos that you might be grabbing off the web because you don't have a photo that kind of fits what you're doing. We teach you how to go in there and modify it enough that Google is going to resonate it as something that has been specifically designed and developed for your company. And then also Google allows you to post. And so every time you put a podcast up, you need to put a post up around that podcast on Google. And the reason that's so important is that is your way to rank across the internet. So the podcast graphic that you create, that you put up in Google, again, you're going to tag it with a title that makes sense and leads them to your podcast and to your business name. And you're going to put that graphic up, and then you're going to write an article that's going to talk a little bit about what the podcast is. And then at the bottom, you're going to have a link that says learn more, and you're going to drop in the URL where they can find the podcast to listen to. The reason that's now important is because now Google's learning more and more about what you do, how you talk to your clients, and what your business really stands for, so that it can begin to send more and more people your direction. But that post searches organically. So now my graphic is going to search an image. So if I say on my graphic, podcast speaking directly to, mompreneurs. Well, now somebody says, I'm a mompreneur with my own business, whatever that may be, or, I'm a mompreneur who's like stressed to the hill, help me, because everybody's got their kids at home now. I got a 16-year-old. So, welcome to the real
those are fun.
Love my son to death. Don't get me wrong, but boys are way more challenging. They will stand for their beliefs. So, let's leave it at that. Anyway, but so, now you have this graphic. So somebody searches that, and your image could potentially appear in Google under images for what they do. And even if you sell something, like it can literally be like, buy this here, whatever it is, register here for my podcast. And I may find it in shopping under Google. It's hard to say, but that image, now they find it interests them, they click on it, and guess where it's taking you? It's taking them back to that Google My Business page, back to that post where they can click and now listen to your podcast, subscribe, and follow you. So, that's how important the Google My Business page is. And everything you give it content-wise in that post searches too. So somebody could be laying in their bed and say, Alexa, I want a podcast that talks about how to handle the stress of being a mom with kids at home, whatever it may be. I mean, you're going to be more specific than that, but I'm just giving you an example. And if you've done a really great job getting yours to rank, guess what? It's taken them back to Google and it's taken them back to your podcast.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the thing that you have to understand, how impactful everything you touch and do in Google is. So Google pulls everything it knows about you. And the first place it is going to drag somebody is going to be to your Google My Business page if there's been a lot of search around it in their area versus somebody else. So, I mean, I always tell people, at no time will I ever tell you, even if you have a physical location and I'm sitting practically in the parking lot, if I don't typically search in a way that you've built your business out, I could be sitting in your parking lot and not have you pull up under the map search. That's typically not going to happen because most of the time people have their maps set for closest to me. But as a podcaster, you can search on maps as well. So, I mean, don't think that just because you don't have a physical location, Google Maps won't find you. They can find you.
And they do find you.
Yeah, they will find you. Hopefully they're going to find you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just, so I'm just trying to express, how important that Google My Business page is. And then behind that then is basically the importance of making sure you have all your Google coding in your website, that your podcast is, your podcast for Google, is being built out right. And then the other thing I can tell you is, if you have like a huge following in your metropolitan area and you have a podcast that's talking to your metropolitan area or your region you're in, you have to have citations. So citations are like your credit report to Google and how you appear across the web.
Yeah.
So it's basically, you set up citations. We can do it for you. I mean, it's a product that we sell and none of these will break your bank. Okay. Let me tell you that. They're one-time fees. They will not break your bank, and the impact it's going to have is going to be substantial. So if you are somebody who has a metropolitan area, let's say you're trying to reach a 100-mile radius of where you're at, you need to build out citations. So they'll take and look at the top 25 based off your subject matter, your business name, and your location, and built those out, which could be like, you've been in business for more than a year, so you better be on Better Business Bureau. You need to be on Yelp, Bing, Alexa, Siri, Amazon Business. So they'll make sure that all your listings appear there and match everything that is on your Google My Business page. So that information goes in first and everything gets built out to mirror it. And it's a one-time fee. You never touch it again unless you move, have a major, telephone number changed, or, something huge happens in your business that is going to impact name, address, phone number primarily, but even your website or your hours that you take calls or accept, business.
And so, I think that's really good advice, because I know for me, for everybody that doesn't know, I mean, we've worked together now for a while, and yeah. I know when I started my podcast, I made sure and set up my Google My Business page because, I had, learned a lot of that stuff from you on the importance of it. And it's funny because, when I got into podcasting, I did not know anything about it. I didn't know that much about it, and I was kind of trying it out, and I really didn't want to share the podcast out for a while. But it's funny, I was getting downloads and listens because I had set up my Google My Business page. And I thought that was a great example because even before I wanted people to listen to my podcast, because I was still learning, they were finding me just because I had my Google My Business page, set up. And I thought that was hysterical. Now, like everybody else, I need to work on mine a little better and a little more, and, do my own due diligence on my Google My Business page. And I think that's why it's so important, because I know I've got a lot of questions just from other podcasters on the subject, like, well, how did you get so many downloads so fast? And I did because I had my Google My Business page set up, and I wasn't even doing it to its full effect. I'm not going to sit there and say I was, because I was not. But just the fact that I had it there, was enough that I was starting to get these listens and these downloads even before I was really ready to, honestly. And that goes to show you that if you have it set up and you're utilizing it and you're doing the social media and you're doing, a lot of the other things, you can actually make sure that your podcast is widespread. And I think that's why it's so important, to, talk about these things, because Google My Business is not something that a lot of podcasters even think about. And I know that because, again, I came from the business ownership into the podcasting world. So I look at things differently, and I know the conversations that I've had with people, that a lot of the podcasters are not utilizing, GMB.
True. And, the other thing that you're eventually going to get to, and we talked about this on, just briefly the last time we talked, is that Google Knowledge Panel. And that is super, super critical down the line, because that's where you really begin to, search on a large scale. And, you have a lot of big podcasters out there who also are like book authors, and they sell a course. And by the way, Google My Business does have a place to build your products out on too. So whether you sell a book or you sell a course or whatever whatever you have, I always tell people, a lot of times your services and your products are exactly the same, but we're going to teach you how to phrase the stuff in that differently. So, services are literally more the benefit and your product is more the feature.
Yeah.
So, we walk through that process and give you examples along the way. So, but the knowledge panel is really huge. And I'm just going to screen share real fast, Maria.
Yep.
So I just pulled Dave Ramsey up because he's, a radio host and he's big. And so. Are you seeing my page?
Oh, I got to add it, but yeah.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
So anyway, this is what a knowledge panel looks like here. And so down the line, your goal is to get to the point that Google gives you a knowledge panel. And so, we've got a couple book authors who are also, like, one is a homeschool consultant. She also has wrote a couple books. And so, she has a Google My Business page. We're in the process right now of actually claiming it and getting access to it. But for you, it may be that we have to build that page from scratch. And so, there's a lot of things that go into that, and it's not an overnight process. But ultimately, this is where you get that international or, national ranking in Google. So beyond your Google My Business page, this is, your actual brand knowledge panel. And this is your goal. Your goal is to get a brand knowledge panel. You will still have a Google My Business page. So, if I search, him in the area that he lives or has his office, I'm going to find his Google My Business page, with all his information on it as well. But in the end, this is what your goal is. Yeah. And if you are somebody, when you type in your name and you already have one of those, you want to reach out to me, because I need to walk you through how to claim it and make sure it gets claimed right, and then help you go through the process of building it out. Because right now there are very few companies out there that understand it to the in-depthly as we understand it. And you can do a lot of right things and you can do a lot of wrong things with it. So the nice thing is in the past, you could never control what is seen out here. It was whatever Wikipedia said, and you couldn't control your photos that were out there. And now you can control all of that. So that's the nicest thing, is because now when you claim it or you get ready to the point where you begin setting it up, it sets up in the background and then, goes through the process of uploading onto your page. And now you're finally able to control how people see it, what podcast link clicks are down there for you to, for them to find your podcast. And so all your social media things down there and just, all that type of stuff. So, and again, for some of you, if you're just starting your podcast, or even and you don't do much YouTubing along with it, or you haven't published a book, or you're not selling something that's out there that Google's recognizing, it's going to take a while to get to the point that we build up everything to get you to this stage. But there is a point that we've got to start from somewhere. So coming up in January, we're going to start actually having live classes that you can take also to work on how to get to the point that I can get a brand knowledge panel. But again, if you are somebody who already has one, when you search your name, this comes up, and not, a Google My Business page. And I'll just show you one. And not a panel like this, then you're going to want to reach out, because, and Merry Christmas. I mean, yeah. So you've gotten, Google's attention.
Which
So
is, yeah, which, you know, and don't be discouraged if you don't have that, because honestly, most people do not. And it takes a while to
yeah,
get to that point. I don't have one either. So I need to do some work on my end of things. But like, I think Sharon, you know, made a good point, especially at the beginning where, you know, a lot of whether you're a business or, you know, in a podcast, you know, a lot of the kind of the rules behind the scenes are the same on, you know,
yeah,
figuring out, you know, what is your message, what's your offer, what's your product, what's your services, whatever. And if you're a podcast, you may not have any services or products other than your own recordings, you
yeah.
know, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
But you
So, and
probably still have a demographic of people that you go
exactly.
after.
Exactly. And that's what I
And
was going to say. That's why it's so important to go ahead and, you know, really think about who your target is and, you know, and get very specific. Like if you're thinking about who they are, think about what do they like? What would they
yeah,
want to hear? What would they like to see? You know, all of those things.
yeah. I mean, and a lot of even like building out your Google My Business page, even on the service side, is literally thinking about what's the pain point that I'm solving through my service, and almost even putting it your service you list as almost like a question.
Yeah.
So, but you also can build out Q&A on your Google My Business page. And we go through the process of teaching you how to kind of come up with the right questions and answers through how you can go out and we teach you about the SEO piece of Google.
Which is important. I mean, I think that's super important. And I think sometimes it's this is why it's so important to be able to work with somebody, because even if you know a lot about marketing or about SEO or whatever, you can get so lost in the junk of your own business. It's hard to think about it within your own business, even if you know. I mean, we've had these conversations before, Sharon. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, I can talk to this business over here and look and I can see all the things that they need to do. But when it comes to my own business, you know, all the possibilities of all the things that could be, would be, should be, and you get lost in the weeds a lot of times. And that is why even professionals should reach out to somebody, you know, for help, because of that, because, you know,
Yeah.
it takes somebody from the outside looking in to say, okay, well, forget all that. Let's look at this, you know, word it like this. What if if you were wanting to know something about, you know, your target, you know, offer, and you were a client, you know, a potential client, what would you ask? You know, and it's kind of putting yourself in that perspective, I think is super important.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, I know this is something that takes so many people a long time and a lot of thought, but Q&A or FAQ, however you want to say it, is so vitally important because it is Google's way to really get an idea of how you resolve a problem. And so by putting that on your website and putting that on your Google My Business page, it really is a point where Google begins to learn, different things. I always tell people, like, when we go out and we do Google SEO and they see a great question and they're like, wow, I love that question, really resonated with me. I always tell them, like, take the question, and then look at Google's answer, because Google's going to tell you what it thinks is a top answer in your area based off of businesses that have, basically in their mind answered that question somehow. And look at what they said, and then, heck, copy it, and then modify it to be more the way you would say it. But now you know that you've got the right question and you've got the beginning stages of a great answer. And
Yeah.
maybe down the line, your FAQ sitting on your website might be what Google pulls in next, because it will
Absolutely.
put the link below the answer of where it got it to take them to that website or to that Google My Business page where that answer is sitting.
Absolutely. And I want to kind of rewind a little bit. So, for the people that are listening, I know we marketed this out for podcasters. So we're going to talk 2 podcasts, but really businesses do things the same way, for the most part. So I want you to talk to these podcasters, that have the podcast. What would be kind of just a basic, step by step, because I want to be able to give them something that they can do today, even if they are going to take your class, and they should, even if they're going to do that, to kind of get them started to say, okay, well, how do I find out if I have a Google My Business page? And if I do, how do I make sure and take the steps and claim it? Or if I don't, how do I set one up? Kind of give them a basic,
so you're going to start out by searching your business name. and you're going to see if something pops up, because obviously, whether you have a physical location or not, you're sitting in your house, and so, and if Google knows enough about your business, they know that you market to the area you're sitting in.
Mhm.
So it should find you. So that would be one way. If it doesn't that way, and you do have a physical location, go out to Google Maps and actually search your actual address. And even if you find yourself on Google search, you should, if you have a physical location, or even if you don't think you do, but Google thinks you do, always go out to Google Maps and search your address to make sure that your business name isn't sitting on top of your house.
So what do you recommend people do? Let's say I'm a podcast and I am podcasting from my home. So my podcast is linked to my business building, so I haven't had that issue. So this is a question for you, aka the Google guy, the professional.
Yeah.
What would be something? So if I'm podcasting out of my basement, what would I do as far as an address goes? Should I put my home address? What should I do?
Just leave the address blank.
Okay.
So down a couple spots below it is service market and service territory. So at that point, you're going to build out a service territory. And I will tell you, if you want your Google My Business page to actually rank and do something for you, keep that in about a 40-mile radius. Yeah. Honestly, maybe even keep it in a 30-mile radius. But if you live rurally like I do, 30 miles doesn't get me very far.
No.
Or Maria. I mean, like 30 miles isn't getting me into Cincinnati.
No.
So, but if I go 50 miles, I'm in all over Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So, if I go 70 miles, I'm all over Indianapolis and all over Louisville, Kentucky. So, it's but I don't want to pick up too big of an area. You want that to naturally, organically grow.
Absolutely. And I think that's important to know, because I had actually set up my Google My Business pages before I met you, because I knew they existed. I didn't realize the importance of them until I met you, and how to really utilize them until I met you. But, I'd already had them set up. But, in my brain, I'm thinking, well, I do business all over the place.
Yeah.
I do it everywhere, because I had clients all over the place. So in my mind, I'm thinking that is what I need to do. If I do business, all over the US. And actually at that time, I even had a client in South America. I'm thinking, bigger is better, right? The farther is better. But it wasn't until speaking with you that, you kind of drilled it into my head that that's not, you're wanting to really look at the local market. And yes, you can have clients all over the place. It doesn't matter where you have clients, or where you want people to listen to your podcast. Yeah. You're still trying to rank locally. So right. I think that's a big distinction, because I think, especially for podcasters, they're probably thinking, well, nobody in my hometown really cares. I want to reach everybody far and wide. So, can you explain a little bit of the difference between, or about the reason why you want to do that, and about the difference between, kind of the local SEO and how that kind of comes into effect, even if somebody's trying to reach, farther distances?
So, the Google My Business panel was designed by Google to be local search. And they have been very adamant that it needs to stay local search. But again, as I've said, like for our business, we get a lot of searches out of Nashville, Tennessee, and our name will pop up when you search, marketing companies in Nashville, Tennessee, even though we're not located there, because we have so many clients and we've got sales reps there. Yep. So, so even you want to build it to your local market. Organically, Google will grow it wherever the search comes from. So you get an opportunity to basically copy the URL that you're going to create around your Google My Business page, which we'll explain in the training class. And you can take and share that out. So, when you put up your podcast, you can say, hey, go out to my Google My Business page, leave me a review. Well, if you have a bunch of people in Arizona and you're in New York, but they're following you because you're talking about, how to do something with, your money when you're retired or whatever it is, and they start leaving you reviews, they start hitting that Google My Business page, you're suddenly going to get following out in that area, and Google's going to push you more into that area. So even initially, it is designed for local search, but don't let it confuse you, because you will get a review link to your Google My Business page that you can send out to people. You can drop on post on anywhere, Facebook, your podcast, whatever it may be, and have that short URL that's going to get them to leave you Google reviews. And when they do that, you're going to naturally expand and expand and expand the area that Google believes that you have influence. It's also going to be a good way to help you get that brand knowledge panel.
Absolutely. And I think that's important, because I think, again, I did it the opposite way and had to go back in there and edit it once I met you because it made sense. But at the beginning, we're all thinking the same way. Well, I
Yeah.
do business all the places. So yeah, but you want to narrow it down, and then, you'll get other search areas added to you by Google, depending on who's interacting with your stuff and, what all's going on from
Yeah.
there. And I think that, thinking about it like that, I think is a lot easier for people to understand. Also, another thing to kind of mention is, what would you recommend for somebody, again, just starting out? I say I'm a podcast. I don't have a Google My Business page. I'm working out in my basement, so I can't put my address. I'm going to go in and put, my, local search area. So what about phone number? If I don't have a phone number,
I'd get a Google number on your phone. I'd download Google Voice.
Yep.
And I'd get a number. So I mean, a lot of people use Google Voice numbers as their phone number. So it still rings in. There's, you can have it ring in, it can have it ring through into your, let's say Verizon number, so that you get a great connection. But when you call them back, if somebody you have to call back, then you can call them back through that voice number. And so connection's not maybe as great because it's going across Wi-Fi versus like the straight Verizon line. But it's a good way for you. I'm the opposite. My office number is actually my Verizon number, but my personal number is my Google number, because I get way more calls,
Yeah.
honestly, like, that through work. And so I want the clarity, of that call on there. And I don't really care as much when I get personal calls. So, for me, I have it the opposite way. But that Google Voice number, I mean, there's lots of different places you can get a phone number, but obviously I'm the Google gal. So I'm going to promote, I have a Google Voice number and it works quite well.
Well, I knew you were going to say that. That's the reason I kind of threw that out there. But I'm trying to go by step because
Yeah.
I know there's so many things. When people mention marketing, a lot of people get so overwhelmed because there are so many options. And you talk to one marketing expert, they'll say, no, you need to do this and forget about the rest. You talk to the next one, they'll say, no, forget about all that. You need to do this. And honestly, you could line up 100 marketing experts and they'll probably say 100 different things. And none of them are wrong. It's not that they're wrong. But one thing that I think is super important to know, and I think we mentioned this when we did the last live that we did, is that, again, if everybody is Googling stuff, start with Google. The other things you add, you do.
Because Google only looks at your stuff that you feed in on Google's documents. So, I mean, if you don't have your Google stuff set up right, you can have the most glorious Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, account out there. And if that's where you're getting a lot of your business, good for you. Congratulations. And that is where a lot of podcasters get their followings and get their business. But if you want to be searched so you gain new people organically through Google, you've got to embrace it. You don't have a choice in the matter.
Absolutely.
And not even embracing it. You have to embrace it fully, because Google's only looking at their stuff to learn knowledge about your business. So your podcast better be up on Google Podcasts. You need to build out a Google My Business page. You better have the tagging, all the Google tagging on the back of your website. There's just so much out there. So actually, let me screen share again with you, and I'll go out here and we'll just show everybody kind of like how I can we'll just show a couple websites and see the difference of like whether they have Google coding on the back of their website. And as I said, if any of you guys want me to check your website specifically, drop it in comments and we'll check your website. So let me get here again.
And while she's doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in there that, yes, I agree on all of the aspects. Whenever I'm working with clients, I make sure and tell them to start with Google. Even though we do social media marketing and we do email marketing and stuff, you still have to start with Google. You start with Google. And I always explain that, social media is like the handshake. It's kind of like, hey, I'm Maria and this is who I am. This is what I'm about. And most people get to know me from all my quirky little posts about my kids and my frustration. And, but that, the Google is where you want to start everything, because that's where people really find about your business and your why and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to add you to the screen. There you go.
Okay. So I'm just going to search life coach and see who it pulls up in my area.
It's free marketing.
Free marketing. So, we'll just grab Cindy. I don't know who Cindy is, but we're just going to use her as our example.
We've
we're
got a
going to
couple of comments coming in. I'm going to start popping some of
Okay.
them up, but um,
So basically, I'm going to see if Cindy's website has any kind of Google tagging on it. And she does not. So here's what I'll tell you about her website. It looks great. She's got a wonderful website, but Google's learning whatever it thinks it's learning about her website and what you do for a living, because she has built nothing out on the backside of her website for Google tagging. So if she would have had Google tagging on the back, she would be telling Google exactly who she wants to be drugged to her website and why, basically. And so without it, Google is kind of just lost, and she's not getting the search drawn to her business that she should. So let me go out to might have I type it right. So if you go onto a site that's got to Google tagging, you're going to see it. So this is the Google tagging we put on the back of this website, which is a client of ours. We just finished the website last week. Actually, we're not 100% done with it because she's getting professional photos taken. So it's lacking of photos, but in return, it's, basically all her tagging is here that needs to be here. So, Google's understanding exactly what should be being drawn to her business, because we've told it what she does and, exactly what they need to know about her business in order to make sure the right searches get to her website.
Yeah. And I always think of Tag Manager kind of like almost like hashtag. So it directly drags all the information, because a lot of people, especially podcasters, where they do a lot of social media, they understand what hashtags do and the importance of it. But a lot of them, some of them might, but a lot of them don't understand what Google Tag Manager does. And it kind of works the same way. So with the hashtag, it drags everything from the hashtag together. With Google Tag Manager, it does the same thing. So if somebody's going in and Googling something specific and you've kind of coded that tag in the back end, it's going to pull your website in there.
And Tag Manager allows you to drop your social media links into it too.
Yep.
So, you can go out and set up Google Pixel and things like that, and you can drop those into your Google Tag Manager. So it's studying and learning those things as, what's happening on your social media pages now and how those are going into your website and how that's affecting that directly. So that was just something,
we had somebody mention that they Googled their old business and it's showing that that it's unclaimed. So what do you recommend for somebody like that? And I think if I remember right, and I may be misquoting that, Ralph, you'll have to put it in the messages if it's wrong, but it's a business that he did have and he sold.
Okay.
I think Ralph will have to correct me
on
that.
Can you tell us what the business is?
How do I put it in the chat and we can look it up, because
and what city and state you're in, or at least your city.
And why he's doing that, he already did it. So here it is. And then I
have a girlfriend in Melbourne, Florida.
That's Melbourne, Kentucky.
Oh, Melbourne, Kentucky. Hey, Melbourne, Kentucky, that's near us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you don't own the business anymore? So there's a page out here because at some point Google...
He still owns it.
Okay. So at some point, Google felt like there was enough search coming in consistently through Google for this business that they felt it needed to have a Google My Business page. So what happens at this point then is, until you go out and claim it, only information that Google can find online about the business is going to be found here. So at some point, they were never able to find a website. Therefore, they were never able to find a telephone number. So, but enough people searched it that it came up as, needing a page to have people be able to click directions and drive there. So
what would you recommend he does at this point?
So you're going to go down. Let me see. Bear with me as I look through the site.
You're fine. I know what I think that you should do, but I'm not the Google gal.
So I normally look first, and I missed this at the beginning, because this, where it says suggest and edit on this page, it jumps around, so it's never in the same spot. So I apologize for having to look a little bit. So now it basically is telling me that nobody manages this page. So all you're going to do is click on that little button that says own this. You're going to hit manage now. You got to have a Gmail account to manage it. And you're basically going to go through the process of claiming the page. And then you can start building out the information. And in fact, as you claim the page and it walks you through the steps of claiming the page, it is going to like walk you through what is your primary category, what is your telephone number, what is this, what is that around that business. And it's, so it begins to learn memory, information immediately about the business. And at the very, very end, it's going to ask you, is this the address you want a verification postcard sent to? And what is the contact name, the individual's contact name that the postcard needs to be addressed to? And then it's going to mail you a postcard. That postcard, they normally used to take about 5 days. They're taking potentially up to 2 weeks now, just because of COVID. I mean,
everything.
So delay in getting out of their center now, and then just delay of the mail getting delivered. So, and then when you get it, you basically going to break it open. It's going to tell you exactly where to log in to enter the number back up. Just remember what Gmail account you claim the page with, because if you got multiple accounts, it will create confusion.
Yes. I did that.
Yeah.
I did that early on. I remember, I think it was you, Sharon, that was like, why is it showing? Because I did what I was asking earlier about if you're working out of your home, because I started my business out of my home.
Well, and when you, years ago, when Google My Business started up in like 2013, you had to have an address. They forced you to have an address. And it really wasn't until like, I want to say maybe, I'm not even sure if it wasn't until like 2018 they allowed you to remove your address and actually just have a service market. And that became way bigger of a thing last year and this year.
Yes. And that was, that was one of the things, because, again, I was the person that started the business out of my home office from my house. And then, it'd pull up my house. And then I'm like, especially whenever, my, my Facebook went public, I don't want my house, hooked to. I don't want people driving to my house, so that was crazy.
So Ralph, let me ask you a question. Did you have a Google Plus page around your business at one point in time? Because that may have been what spurred you getting a Google My Business page. But some may just have been people, wanting to look for, search there and drive there,
He said all the information can be changed and claimed, I assume. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then he said, it's so amazing because that was 10 years ago. All right. And then we had another person that was making some statements. Let's see. First of all, it's Stacy. She said straight gems in this conversation. So thanks, Stacy. And then also she said she put her podcast on Google Podcasts from listening to the last conversation that we did with Indie Pods.
Yay!
Which that's awesome. And then she said, yeah, I get it's an algorithm. You have to put the data to lead to it.
It is an algorithm. Yep. So, I can tell you the number one thing they look at is your business name. Number two is the number one category that you provide to Google or select as your primary category. Then they're looking at what all your services are, how you describe them. They're looking at then what your products are and what you sell and how you describe them, and even the photo that you put up along with the products. And then from there, it's looking at your reviews. It's looking at your photos up on your page to gain knowledge of your business. I can tell you the more photos and or videos under 30 seconds. So my little disclaimer, put it on YouTube, put a 30-second clip in your as your graphic for your podcast that you're putting on YouTube, and shoot it back to your YouTube channel. But those things are being looked at. Those reviews are critically important. Critically important. We walk through that whole process and talk about reviews when we have the class. So and reviews don't have to just be about your business or about a product or service that you provide in your business. It can be somebody that's giving, an accolade to you as an individual and saying, hey, I'm going to, giving you a character review. So, God love your family. But I'll tell you, if they leave you one review, the only way they can leave you another review is to update the old review. So, unless they have a separate Gmail account, but but then, Google has this way of looking at like that. It's coming from the same IP address, and then most likely they're going to kick it out anyway. But reviews are really important. Google does scan them for a lot of information. And so it's really important, even when you're asking for reviews from people, that you ask them to tell you a story, and you want them to tell a story of how, your podcast impacted them, or, maybe a service that you provided around your podcast that you have, if a client's, buying a product or service from you, you need them to be specific, because Google wants to learn enough about your business to send somebody else to your business. You also want people to understand how you have helped an individual, so they can see if that they have the same problem. Oh my gosh, I have the same problem as that lady had. And look how great she feels when this is
Yep.
all was all said and done. Oh, I have to work with her, you know? So that's really super important. Google wants you to have 10 photos and 10 reviews up as quickly as you can get them up. And they want one new photo and one new review every 30 days. Photo piece is easy. I mean, if you're doing podcasts, you've got graphics around it. You can drop your graphic in as your photo, you know. Worst case scenario, Google, if you take a photo down and leave it off for 48 hours and put it back up, they don't remember that it was there. So, it's kind of a cheat way, but, really you want to build more photos up because, it does really grow your visibility by having more photos, short little videos, things like that up there. The other thing I'm going to tell you is when you begin to post no less than one time a week on your Google My Business page. I mean, if you're posting 4 days a week on Facebook, you better be posting 4 days a week on Google My Business. And the thing I'm going to tell you is Google only looks at stuff after it's been posted on their page for knowledge and see where else you put it. So if you're going to post something on Google that you posted on Facebook, do it in reverse. Post on Google first, give it just a little bit of time, and then go post it on Facebook and anywhere else you want to put it, because now Google's following it.
And I think that's good advice because I mean, we all, and I say we all because I do this too. It's so easy to just post on social media because I'm used to it. I do it all the time, and to go and take the step to do Google first, even though I know I should, I don't do it. It's like everything else that we know we should do. That's good for us. A lot of times we don't do. So,
yeah.
But I think it's super important to make that a priority. And this is kind of, I mean, I'm talking to myself here because that's actually one of the things that I've kind of committed to doing a better job of is I'm in the social media world all the time. So again, that's like my everyday, even though I know I need to start with Google, I don't always do it. Even though I come on here with you and I'm preaching, yes, you should do it because I'm like, yeah, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. Right. So it ends up being one of those things that you have to make it a priority. You have to put it in the schedule. And I honestly, I could go and get my schedule now because that's one of the things that I I've had to schedule it on my calendar now because I know I don't do a good job with it. And that's fine. Again, it goes with, what you're used to doing and your priorities and, everything else. It's like everything else, like, if you're wanting to drink more water and you're not used to drinking more water, you have to make a point to drink more water. And that this is my hurdle. I know that I should be doing Google better. I'm not doing Google better. So I've had to make appointments with myself to do Google better. And I'm telling you, Sharon, because guess what? You're my accountability partner. So
yeah. I mean, so I think the biggest thing that I can say is it really doesn't matter where you're building content out. When you are building out content, whether that's to put up your website, whether that's to build out the backside of your Facebook page, or whether that's to build out your Google My Business page or, wherever you're putting content, create Word documents. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough. Create Word documents. And now you have one Word document is just your about statement. One Word document is just your services and how you describe them. One is your products and how you describe them. And one is your frequently asked questions. And grow it and grow it and grow it. And the reason that that's so important is because you don't want to have to go back through and go, oh my gosh, where did I put that? Why did I put that? And then, even like your about us statement, because it's so many characters on Google and it's so many characters on LinkedIn and it's so many characters on Facebook, just like save them, so this is my about us statement. This is my about us statement on my website. Now, when we talk about Google My Business, I'm going to tell you that you got to understand the SEO around your business.
Absolutely.
To write that about us statement, because that about us statement may be one thing on your website, but it may be 150-degree turn in what you put up on your Google My Business page.
Absolutely.
So, so again, I mean, just create Word documents and keep them there. And I would even tell you, I would go so far as to like, if you're going to, because I do this all the time, reword how I phrase things, or want things phrased, I will always save that original one. It just will be way far down on my page and it'll be dated like the last day that I used it. And, and it'll even say like last used, and I put a date out there and I know after that I changed it because maybe one day I go back and go, hey, things have turned around and the algorithms have changed a little bit. And the way I said it back then makes a little more sense now. I'm not going back on, oh, darn, where was that? How did I phrase that? Because you saved it. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I can't even emphasize enough how you really need to have your different Word documents, and you've got to stay there with it. And then you also need a Word document that's gonna be your avatar or avatars, and so you're going to look and say, I want, this type of person, so whether, and then I want them in this age group, this, might be that you're, specifically talking to people who've been in the Navy in the past. I mean, are coming out of the military and they got to start their life over again. And you may be somebody who experienced that. And maybe that's what you coach people on. So
Yep.
now all of a sudden, so you're literally going to break it down. I want somebody who is between this age and that age. That's that's, ex-military, maybe even so much as ex-army, ex-navy. I mean, like, get decilled. I want a mompreneur who is, in the next 12 months going to be an empty nester, and is having to prepare for that. Though, let me tell you, a lot of us who have been empty nesters have our kids back homeschooling their college, from home all of a sudden going, what? I will say, I made the comment to somebody recently. I said, I've loved COVID and the fact that I had time with my daughter that I would have never otherwise had, before she started her real life and her own career and moved into her own place. So, that's my positive spin on COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
So,
think we all have to take those. That's what look for whatever we can. And yeah, going back to like your organization on, wanting, organizational methods on coming up with your avatars. I think that's good advice. And I do something similarly. And I think with a lot of people, what it runs into, especially if they're like me and you, Sharon, where we have like multiple irons in the fire all the time,
and multiple
is
companies
in
and
multiple companies and everything else. Yeah.
launching a new one soon.
So yes, we are, which I'm pretty excited about. But yeah, anyway, if what you may find is that, you may have completely different avatars for that business, or you may have some of them the same and some of them different, or you may have all of them the same. And there's no right or wrong as far as that goes. But I do think it's a good kind of cheat sheet way that you mentioned to kind of go ahead and build those out. And what that can do is, if nothing else, put you in the frame of mind. I have mine written out. Actually, I have mine is really silly. I've actually drawn mine, with my non-artistic ability. They're like stick people, but
I'm laughing because
and I've
I want
named
to see it.
them. Yeah, I'll take a picture. I'll send it. Actually, I'll take a picture and put it on here because I've named them and everything else because, I do better. Like, we got used to doing live speaking engagements. And when you speak live, you get the energy from the people, right? They're there and you're excited and that.
Yeah.
And
I'm like running around my pom-pom.
yeah, I know. So, but whenever you're having to write to somebody or create something, that's a written piece or even virtual, if you're talking by yourself, especially, that can be hard if you don't have that person that you're talking to. And so that's kind of my cheat sheet way, similar to what you said, to kind of come up with, what to say, how to word it, because, if you don't really know who you're talking to, you don't know how to word it to where it really resonates with them and to where they really understand, why they need to talk to you or what you can do for them or whatever.
Well, and that's like I said earlier today, like my one client that we're working with right now. I mean, I have him create his avatar and then I had him give me what he would think his 30-second commercial or elevator pitch would be to get that client to want to listen to him. And, that's what our call's about tomorrow, because I get to go through and, slice the crap out of it and ask questions and, get clarity.
Yep.
So that we get a more defined, way. And, some of that is literally going through Google and starting to search things that he said and seeing where it takes me.
Absolutely.
Because if it's not getting me where I need to be, then his message isn't right. And that's really important for you to understand. When you write your message, take what you think are key words out of it and start key phrases, not words, key phrases, or even questions in your mind that somebody would ask that you kind of answer with your 30-second commercial, and search them on Google, because it may be a real eye-opening experience for you.
Absolutely. And I know, I've had multiple conversations with clients about that very thing. And I think a lot of times we're so focused, and I say we as business owners or even podcasters, because really a podcast should be run like a business. And, I think
it should be, because it is your business. I mean,
exactly. So, but I think a lot of times we get so focused on all the things that we need to do that we're just like blindly barreling forward.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times the hardest thing is taking that break, taking a stop, and either asking yourself questions, or like I've done with other people, and you've done the same thing with people, is asking, you asking the questions to somebody to try to make them think, okay, well, who are
Yeah.
you talking to? Why do they care what you have to say? And yes, it's important in a business aspect, but it's also important in a podcast aspect, because, who are your listeners?
Right.
What do they care about? What are they interested in? And you may have 2 or 3, avatars or targets or
Yeah.
listeners, or however you want to name them. You may have 2 or 3 or whatever that your target is, but you need to make sure that you are thinking about, if you're creating an episode or even creating the marketing for an episode, you need to think about that target that you had in mind when you're recording that episode. If you're,
Maria and I white label it.
yeah,
We white label and have the white label sitting the whiteboard in front of us, and we kind of go down the categories that we want to touch on based off of what we're talking about.
absolutely. And I think that is so important to do that, because if not, then we're just spraying and praying. We're just literally just spraying it all out there. And I've done it. And
Yeah.
I've done that. I've been there, done that, because again, we always think, well, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. But it really doesn't take that long to go ahead and do it now. And actually, you're going to save yourself a lot of time, a lot of money,
Yeah.
a lot of headache to go ahead and think about it before.
Well, and you don't want to teach Google something that's not right.
Yep.
I mean, so, that's the biggest thing, because it's harder to correct something Google believes about your business than it is to have it right the first time. So, I mean, if you haven't gone through the process because you're new at podcasting, really sitting down and figuring out, who am I really wanting to talk to? What's my number one target audience I want to talk to? Before you go through the process of building out your Google My Business page and you're building out services and products around something you want to sell, if you don't understand who you're trying to sell it to, you may be giving Google information that they're going to learn that you have to correct. And when you go, I mean, it takes them an average of 90 days to 6 months to really understand what your business is to start with. And so now you've got another 6 months to a year to correct what you just told them. And I can tell you, when you go through my training, you're going to understand exactly how you're going to know in Google software for Google My Business who is searching you and how they're getting there. And we're going to talk about that in the class. And we're going to teach you how to take that information, copy, paste it, and put it in an Excel sheet, and do it every 2 to 4 weeks, so that your marketing, as you're building out your Google My Business page, you begin to see what Google is thinking it knows about your business and how it's drawing people to you. And if it's not right, you got to fix it fast. And you got to figure out too, along that way, like, what is it seeing that I'm not seeing that we got to fix? And a lot of it may just be posting. So I know I've talked about posting several times, but posting is literally the most important thing that you can do after you've finished building out your Google My Business page completely.
Yeah.
Because posting increases your searchability on Google by 88%. If you post at least one post per week on Google, 88% increase in how Google knows about you organically, how other search engines learn about you. It's that critical that you post on Google. And we tell people that over and over. And we'll even call clients that we built out their Google My Business page and turned it back over to them and taught them how to post and did our hour training with them. And then they don't do anything. And we'll call them back and being like, it's been, 3 months, you put up 2 posts. Are you ready yet to turn it over to us? Because it's literally that important.
Now, it's going back to the posting, what kind of talk about posting a little bit? Because again, if it's mainly podcasters that are listening, they may be wondering, what if it's going to be similar to social media posting, where you just like share a meme.
One of our clients.
Yep. I think it's important to kind of note, that there are some differences to, what you're going to want to post in, Google My Business. Because I think that can be hard for some people to understand if they've only done social media.
So when you're posting in Google, I'm in the backside. So for those of you who've been in it, this is what it looks like. For those of you who are not, you're going to get training on it. So you've got different things that you can post about. And the way that you need to think about it is, how is somebody going to search to find this? And am I fixing the answer to a question that they're asking? So, this company has never served lunch before 3 weeks ago. So they just started doing lunch on Thursdays and Fridays only. So we do a post every approximately Tuesday or Wednesday, that does nothing but markets their Thursday and Friday lunches. And then we do another post for them over the weekend or right around the weekend that talks about maybe their weekend special, what they have going on, maybe like who's the band on Friday night, whatever it may be. Because even though COVID's hit, they still have live music every Friday night. So, so the posts sit out here. And again, I mean, like, we're writing to somebody to bring them in. So they've got a lot of people right now that they've canceled their big holiday parties, but instead they're coming in small groups of like 10. So we said, okay, well, let's go out and, look to fill their private room that seats like, 20. So social distancing, it seats 10, and, they've also have a brunch on Sunday. So, and we write to like what somebody's looking for. So, treat yourself to something special, and then we put something out there that's appetizing and drawing to them. And these are photos we either get from them or photos we find online. Most of them come from them. They take them and send them to us. But, again, I mean, we're writing for that person and what they're, what that person may be looking for. So, this is writing all about, hey, tomorrow being Thursday and Friday, like, we got lunch. Not only, besides that, like, it talks about the fact that, they can click here and see their whole entire lunch menu. And it leads them to the place where they can even just order a carry out lunch if they don't want to come in there. So, they can do carry out, dine in, enjoy it, Watermark, their, local restaurant in Dayton, Ohio area. So they're actually in Miamisburg, just outside of Dayton. But, what they're trying to do is just grab that area. So they're talking about the area they're trying to get. So the other thing I'll tell you, and this is a really fun little trick that you're not going to see very many people give you, because most people don't even know about it. But one of the things Google does when they scan photos is they're looking for the photo to say something. And so, a lot of people just put a photo up there as a graphic. They don't understand that just like putting the watermark up here, their logo, just even so lightly in the corner and putting some information on here, it's going out there and grabbing stuff. We cannot put a telephone number or an email address in the post written content here because of Google's regulations. But it doesn't stop us from putting it up here. So, again, it's just little tiny tricks that we know that we're like, okay, we can't put a telephone number or you can't put an email address in the content here, but we can put it in our graphic. So those are little tidbits that we give you. I'll tell you, when you put a graphic up, when you do a post, always, always, always make sure that you are using a graphic that is specific to your company. So, invest in Canva. It's $15.99 a month. You build out your graphic in Google My Business. You click one button and you size it to Facebook. You click a button again, you size it to Instagram, and now you have them all right there. You download them and you're ready to start posting them up. So, same way with I'm not sure what the dimensions are for like your podcasting covers, but again, I mean, just this photo now is going to search. So, I mean, I've gone out to search Watermark before, and I've been in like other areas of the country, and I'll search Watermark just to see how well they search. And there's really 3 major restaurants out there that are called Watermark, but our guys will typically come up somewhere on that first page. And when I just search the, Watermark restaurant. So anyway.
And they're a great restaurant too. So you should check them out.
Yeah. Great restaurant, great owners. It's worth the drive. I mean,
that is.
So, not for somebody who, depending on how far you guys live, but for the guys in the Kentucky
or Ohio.
Or Ohio or Indiana. So anyway, but so I'm just kind of showing you. Everybody should have a COVID update up there. So even if like as a podcaster, it doesn't have anything to do with your business, Google still wants to see one that just says, hey, if we do meet with clients, we all wear masks, whatever that may be. So we could say all of our meetings are currently on Zoom, so we keep everybody safe. Yay, thumbs up. So, you can add an offer, you can add an update, this is where update is like where you're going to put a lot of your stuff. So when you put up a new podcast, you're going to come out, you're going to do an update, you're going to have a graphic, you're going to talk about it, you're going to put a link below, it's going to run them to that podcast. If you recorded it and you put it on a YouTube video, then you got to decide where you want to lead them to. Do I want to lead them to YouTube or do I want to lead? So you might switch back and forth. and where they go. So I hope that helps a little bit in posting. I will tell you, if you already have a Google My Business page and you want to start posting, the size of the graphic is 720 in width by 540 in height.
That's what I was going to have you, tell them, because that's one of the things I know that a lot of people end up kind of getting confused on all the different sizes of all the different things. And I know it could be confusing sometimes, but if you don't remember what it is, just Google, just Google it. So just Google it and, just type in, what the dimensions are, because, that way it doesn't look, stretched out or weird or gross or whatever.
Yeah. So, and then it looks different for every company. Like how you write really depends on your company and what you're trying to do with your post. So, I mean, like, that was a restaurant, and then, here's Service Master, so, they're helping you with your, water damage, and, unfortunately they do dead body removal. And I mean, they just do all kinds of weird stuff, but, they serve a lot of purpose for a lot of people when they have problems, So, I mean, I love this one last week, holiday or not. Because they work 24/7, 365. So
there's a question.
Okay.
Says the learn more or button link is the only link that passes. Do follow in the post, correct?
Yes. So, I mean, you're when you, let me just go back up here and start from scratch. And so if I'm going to create let's say an update, he has products. Watermark doesn't have products because they have menu items, so they don't get billed out here. So if you've got products, chances are if you want your product to search really well on Google, you want to build it out as a post. We talk about that in training class. But when you're down here, the learn more, this button, you can do all kinds of things. So you can book an appointment if you've got an online appointment scheduling. If you have something that they can order online, you can send them there. So like if you sell a book and you're going to market your book, you can send them to Amazon or wherever it's sitting. Even like the buy button, same thing. If they want to buy something, it can be the same way. Learn more, that would be taking them to the podcast. Sign up again would be like if you're having a class. Call now, as obviously call now. Call now can only be added on desktop. If you are on your mobile phone doing a post to the Google My Business app on your phone, you cannot add the call now button because you're on your phone. So in their mind, I think it's kind of silly, but anyway. But yeah, so learn more is where you'd go, and then you just find the link here of where you want to drag them to, and put your post up. So you have to have a photo to have a post. You have to have a photo to have a product. So you don't have to write about it, but you want to, because that's how Google learns about it and how they send it out. But I mean, just know that you always have to have a graphic there. And the one thing I will tell you on your graphic is if you grab a generalized graphic off of the World Wide Web and you put it up with making no modifications to it, you will not see your post up. And so you've got to stick it in Canva or, Photoshop or somewhere. And even if it's just laying your logo over it or putting a sentence on it or doing something to modify that photo so Google doesn't think it's something you've grabbed off the World Wide Web, because otherwise you may be like my one hair salon who decided to post something on Google and couldn't figure out why they were getting calls from Arizona, and suddenly realized that the photo they chose was used first originally and created by a strip club in Arizona.
Everybody's telling me about that.
Yeah. So after many, many calls, yeah.
Well, and I think it's easy to do. I mean, again, most of the time it's like, oh no, I need to post this. And we're trying to hurry and quickly grab something and throw it out there,
Yeah. So while I'm in here, I'll just show you guys insights. I talked a little bit about like understanding where your business is coming from. So, I mean, here's theirs for the last month. So Service Master was their number one searched word that got to them. So basically their name, their Service Master BTM, which is the guy that owns its initials. So BTM, there's again, Service Master Restore, which is actually the division of Service Master that they own. And then just basically it goes down. So I don't, they do asphalt sealing. They do like power washing, that kind of stuff. I'm not sure why bathtub refinishing came in, but it's probably because some of the photos we used may have drawn that in. Certified electrician, they do rebuilt work. So they do concrete repair. They do criminal scene cleanup. So, and, so anyway, so we track this, and we look at it every single month, and we've got Excel sheets that go back over a year, probably 2, that, show us how their name changes and how it's searched. And that way we know when we write stuff that we're getting the search we want. So anyway.
All right. So
I'm done screen sharing.
That's okay. No, he asked another question, or he wrote that anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So if you can put a link in your post, and it's good to do that because it's called backlinking, and Google actually wants to see backlinking. But the only link that's going to be live is the one you put in the button. Does that answer your question?
He was saying, don't lose the flow. No. We like the questions. It's good stuff. Criminal scene cleanup is a growing market.
Yeah. And these guys do a lot of it, unfortunately. They tell me some pretty gory stories. So they had an abandoned warehouse that the body had actually been there so long and had rotted through 3 layers of the floor.
Yeah, I remember hearing that too.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, they're interesting people to drink at night with too, let me tell you.
We all are, though, right?
We love our customers so much, they invite us out with them. So
yeah. It's good stuff. And I think that that's another thing, that I think a lot of the podcasters specifically can tell you is that, podcasting is a network of its own. And, I think that, just being able to tap into that network, leave reviews for each other. We all end
Absolutely.
up,
That's a great idea.
I mean, I think it's great because I think a lot of us will do it because we'll listen on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or Spotify or whatever.
Yeah.
And we'll review, the show on there, but a lot of them I know I've not been great at it, going back and having them leave a review on Google. And I think that is an important step to kind of think about.
And I'm the Google gal.
Yeah. Well, back to, we all kind of, and I know we make this joke a lot. It's like electricians have the worst electric and plumbers have the worst plumbing. Yeah. I'm so busy working on my client stuff all the time. Then it's like so late. It's like, okay, well, I need to do ABC on mine, but
I'll call my staff and be like, hey, what have we posted about recently?
Yeah.
And they're like, did you not look at the posting calendar? Oh yeah, let me do that.
Yep. I know it.
Oh, and then Allie just shakes her head at me.
As she should. I get it. I totally get that.
He's fabulous when he's tipsy. There you go. Well, I need to buy Maria one of those gigantic wine, glasses that hold like 5 bottles of wine in it with a straw.
I feel like you're calling me out.
I'm sorry. That's funny. Well, our Wednesday wine night girls thing. So for those of you who ever want to hop on Successfully Chaotic, every once in a while we do a Wednesday wine night, and so.
And she laughs at my wine, and I like my wine.
And your husband coming back in going, do you need refilled again?
Yeah, he's like keeps topping it off because most people pour their wine glasses like a normal glass, and mine's like you have to like sip it like this so it doesn't like spill over. But yeah.
So. Anyway, but moving on. Sorry. So I guess for me, I would say just to talk a little bit about cost and price of doing things with us. The Google My Business page is our cyber sale right now this month. And so it's $24. And I had the link up a little bit ago, but I'll send it to Maria. She can get it out, post it out there. Cause for some reason, I can't get into the comments section.
Yeah. You should be able to, but.
So anyway, but, I tried to, anyway.
I don't know. So, I'll put it in the stuff.
So that's $24. It is a 3-hour class with about a half an hour or so Q&A after. Beyond that class, you get a copy of the video and a PDF that has like the sizes of the graphics and things like that, and kind of some do's and don'ts when it comes to posting and writing your services and little things like that. It also has the Google support link back in Google My Business support to each section. So if you want to read more specifically about it, I give you the Cliff Notes. But if you want to personally go in there, be my guest, and we give you the live link. So, and then when it's over, if you want to continue to be updated as Google makes changes and has updates, it's $18 a month. And like if Google makes a major change, which they made 2 in the last 45 days, you'll get an email from us that says like emergency Google My Business change, effective immediately or something like that, which you would all caps. It's pretty, apparent that you were getting an email from us. And we normally attach like a walkthrough, kind of Zoom recorded video that walks you through how you get into it and what you're going to change and how you do it. And so that we'll walk you through it. You can hear us walking you through it. You'll see it. And then in the next monthly newsletter, that you would get from us, it'll actually have the, more of written instructions to that piece of it. And so you also get a newsletter, anything that we're aware of that Google has coming up changes wise, and anything that would potentially affect your business, whether that's somebody, from Google Ads algorithm changes to Google My Business algorithm changes to updates and products coming up. I can tell you that Google is adding a chat box to Google My Business sometime the beginning of 2021. We've been doing some beta testing on it, or they're doing beta testing on it right now, and it's going well. So right now we have messaging, which allows you pretty much to text people back and forth through the Google My Business, through your phone. But now they're getting chat like on desktop. So just some of the little tidbits of information that we have. So again, it kind of tells you things that are coming. A lot of times Google will not give us a date. I mean, we may start beta testing something and they could say, we're going to beta test this and we're going to launch it approximately then. And then then doesn't happen. And literally we're waiting, and 13 months later, they're like, we did it today. And we're like, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks for the pre-notice.
Yeah.
Because we only have 294 pages to change.
And I think that's a good reason to really think about, having somebody to call when those things happens. And I know when we've had times where we lost all the clients because of a Google change.
Yeah.
That
Google,
was bad.
yeah. What did we lose that one day? Didn't we lose 32 pages just
lost
completely
a lot.
dropped
It
and
was just
disappeared?
gone.
Just disappeared like they were never there.
Yeah. And then I think that's important, because then you have somebody that can help. You can call to be like, oh my gosh, when they were working, and try to get it all back up.
We had people 3 months afterwards calling going, my Google page disappeared. Do you have any idea why? I'm like, well, probably it was August 17th of 2019 that it happened. And we're now in December. So you've been losing search for 3 months now. And so because, they weren't following well enough to understand that we emailed you and said, please pull up your Google My Business page.
Yep.
Make sure it's still there. Google lost hundreds of thousands of pages back last August. So,
and that was a bad weekend.
Oh my God. I mean, yeah.
So
another reason why you need to have a Word document saving everything.
Exactly.
You need to have a file where you save all the pictures you put up.
Yep. Because that way it's plug and play.
Yeah. And when they lose it and the kind of glitch they had that day, it never came back. We did get some reviews back eventually.
Yeah.
But it was devastating for us and for our clients.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap this up, I will make sure and put the links in the comments, or actually you can come back in there and put in the comment. That way people have access to, contact you on social media too. Whenever we get out, you just go back in and put it in the comments. But in the meantime, if go out to Google and look and see if your business or a podcast, whoever's listening, if it has a Google My Business page. And if you end up having any questions, feel free to reach out to Sharon or I, and we'll help walk you through it.
Yeah. So I will tell you 2 other things. If you are somebody who wants to be found really well in local search, our citation package is a one-time setup of $150. And if you need the coding put on the back of your website, it's the same price. It's a one-time $150. So we try to keep our prices very reasonable and inexpensive. And the other great thing with Google My Business is when you're done building that page out, if you don't have a website, once you're done building the page in that page, there's a place you click that says website. You spend the $9.99 to buy your domain, and Google creates a website based off of all the information that you have put on your Google My Business page. So if you don't have a website, it's a great way to create yourself a website with not basically doing the effort twice.
Yep, absolutely. So I I think that everybody has got kind of a good idea, hopefully, on at least what a Google My Business page is, except for maybe Kelly. She says she missed it and she had no idea what we're talking about. So she can listen.
It's
She
the
can go
box
back and
you
listen.
land on in Google search and Google Maps that talks about businesses and describes them.
So, and that's, and that will, I don't know if this will work. That will get everybody started on, what they need to do, as far as being able to show up on Google and all that. So, Sharon, I'll let you go ahead and leave everybody with a, takeaway.
I mean, the only thing I can say is you only get one chance to make a good impression on Google. So, take the time to make sure you show up right.
Absolutely. Love it. So, all right. Well, thanks for being on here again. And I guess I'll probably talk to you in a few minutes. I act like I don't talk to you all like every second. So talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye.